Welcome back to part 2 of Under the Lights, brought to you by Sportology TV. In part 1, it was great to be joined by Shotgun Pitters, but now on part 2, we are joined by another great guest. It is former world champion, now pundit and commentator, Barry Jones. Barry, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Great to have you on.
Pleasure having somebody with vast boxing knowledge on, Barry. I thought I'd...
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Barry, how's life treating you at the moment? I know things have been crazy. I know you are working. I've seen you on the TV. I've seen you on Sky. I've seen you doing your bit. How's life treating you?
Yeah, okay. Like everyone, there was a panic and a worry about work, of course, and money, but things are slowly getting back to normal. So, we're all playing catch up. I would imagine it's the same for everybody. But yeah, little bits of work are coming back, and so I've lost some work and I've gained some work. So it all sort of evens out, doesn't it? In the end.
Are you doing work are you doing it sort of like via the internet? Are you going to events? How's it working?
I'm for Sky, like BT now are using somebody else to do the co-coms for these breakdown shows. Richie Woodall, who's fantastic, by the way. So I've been doing more stuff for Sky, to be honest. But I'm not doing the live fights. We do a show the next morning, so I'll turn up Sunday morning. And me and Matt Macklin, and I'll be at Eddie's back garden or the matchroom's back lawn, whatever you want to call it. And and we'll do the fight breakdown there. So it's pretty much just me, Matt Macklin, a producer, a cameraman, and a load of cleaners and security. The glamour of the job, hey?
How are you finding the sort of change for yourself? I know you're heavily involved in Box Nation when that was running. BT, you did bits for them. You're doing a lot of the sort of breakdowns, you were commentating here and there. But now it seems like a whole different ballgame. You've moved on. I don't know if you're freelancing, if you've got a contract with Sky, but that's irrelevant.
No.
You're actually with Sky at the moment doing bits for Sky. How's the change been for yourself?
Yeah, it's nice to work with, you want to work with everybody. You want to do all the work. Without sounding like an idiot, that's true. You want to do all the work and everyone's job. Of course you do. But there's some jobs you can't do, and you're lucky. And someone like me, I'm lucky to get work. I'm happy just to be considered, to be honest. So working with Sky is no different to working with BT. They were lovely there, of course, and the people I work with, of course, directly. And same with working with Sky now. The people I'm working with directly are just the loveliest of people, and that makes the job easier. We sometimes forget people I haven't been doing this job for that long, but maybe 7-8 years, full time, which is a decent length of time, I guess. This is the sport I love. I loved it when I was 10 years of age. It was my first love before girls and anything else. Boxing was my first love. And so, to be involved in it now, and you sometimes take it for granted. So you'll moan and groan about stuff that when I first started with Box Nation, I would never have dreamed of moaning about. I think my career is quite unique to say most others who've gone from boxing to punditry. Like say Matt Macklin's a perfect example. Fantastic fighter, and once he retired, he started doing little jobs for Sky, and now he's their full-time co-commentator and doing a great job. But I had maybe 10 years out of the sport. I mean, a whole different level. So I was nowhere near the sport, not in any capacity at all. I didn't even go. I went to a handful of shows. Obviously, Joe Kazagi was a friend and someone I looked up to, so I went to all his fights. But apart from that, I just watched it on the TV. So I was plucked from literally nowhere to do Box Nation, and that sort of changed my life, to be honest.
What do you make of the behind closed doors shows? Because obviously, as you say, everything you're doing is different, but also on fight night, there's no crowds at all. So what are you making of how Matchroom and Frank Warren have managed to do those shows?
Yeah, first of all, I sort of have actually done some closed door. I've done one NTK show actually, and I'm going to do a few more of those. And I'm also doing, I'm not trying to advertise myself, and I'm also doing a Channel 5 show in September, which will be as well behind closed doors. They're different. They're very much, when you're there, they're very much like an amateur atmosphere, because the changing rooms, when you're on big fights and you're on big bills, whether you're the main card or the main undercard, whatever, you're so far away from the arena, you don't even know what's going on inside unless you have a TV in your room. Now, say for instance the MTK show that I did the other day in Wakefield, the changing rooms were actually in the hall, and that's very much like an amateur. So you can almost watch while you're getting ready, so it's a difference. So for these top class amateurs who haven't been pro too long, it's not much of an issue. For the guys, it'll be interesting for someone like Dillian Whyte and Povetkin, who especially Dillian Whyte, who's only since he boxed early on in his career in small places, but he's never really had that amateur pedigree. So it'll be a different, and he's always been on big bills now for the last sort of 5 years. It'll be interesting how he copes with that sort of stuff. But from a aesthetic point of view, watching from home, it took me a show to get used to it. The first BT show, I didn't like it, to be honest. The fights were okay, but and you should think I'm all about the boxing, so why would it bother me? But it did, because it's what you're used to, familiarity, and now we're getting used to the shows, you almost forget. But the quality of the fights have to be good. If the quality of the fight is poor, there's no other distractions, even in your peripheral, to sort of, there's so and so there, there's a famous person there, or there's Ali there in her shorts. No offense. But without being crude, whatever interests you, whatever it is, there's nothing there. There's no one there, except it's just the pure boxing. So when it's a good fight, like we've seen a few good fights, then you're enthralled in that. But when the fight's a journeyman versus a prospect, then it's almost a waste of time showing it, to be honest.
Let's talk about this weekend then. You talked about fights that have got to be good, especially in this time. There's a great fight. Heavyweights, when heavyweights meet up, is generally a good fight nowadays. Dillian Whyte, somebody who's been waiting for this WBC shot for however long, is fighting another tough opponent in Alexander Povetkin. Talk to me about that fight. Just break down that fight for me slightly. We know Povetkin coming off fighting on the undercard in Saudi Arabia against Mike Hunter. Had a bit of a scare there, but, came back for and pulled off a draw. What do you make of this fight?
It's a strange one, because Dillian's a massive favourite, and so he should be, because, his career is going in a different direction to Povetkin's. Povetkin is trying to stop the rot, if you like, because, his skills and his legs are declining, of course, because of age and how many fights and how long he's been around the sport. But he's still a danger. I think the way, because he's not the tallest of heavyweights, he fights small, and that makes it difficult for some guys to get close to him. And what Povetkin does very well is, a lot of heavyweights now don't use the jab like they used to, so it's more of a yardstick to line them up for the big right hand, or the left hand if you're a southpaw. So he uses that slow left hand, that slow jab, to slip inside, and he does that quite well, and comes in with big left hooks, as we've seen against Anthony Joshua, of course. Yeah. And that right hand over the top, which can cause plenty of trouble. But I just don't think he has the legs. I think the Hunter fights prove that. Hunter's a good fighter. Yeah. But I think Povetkin, it showed more of the decline for Povetkin to me than it did how good Hunter was. And I feel that if Dillian can, one, put it on him early and stay disciplined, not make any silly mistakes, then I find it very hard to see anything but a win for Dillian Whyte, who, by the way, is just had to wait so long for his world title shot. And, to his credit, hasn't taken a load of easy fights which other fighters would, and you wouldn't blame him for doing that. Just trying to nick a few quid until you get that big shot. He's most of the fights he's had have been against guys who are world rated themselves and potentially could beat him. So you have to admire that from him. But yeah, the only thing I have an issue with all the Dillian Whyte situation is the WBC now have shown some backbone at last. Yeah. At the worst possible time. Like they should have done what they're doing now. Demand Dillian get the next shot almost a year or so ago. Not now when we get so close to Joshua and Fury. Now demand that Whyte has to be next. And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to risk that? From Dillian Whyte's point of view, that's the right choice, and he wants that. He doesn't care about what the public wants regarding Fury and Joshua. But for the public, take Dillian Whyte and his people away from this. That's what everyone else wants to see on the planet. They want to see Fury and Joshua for all the belts. And now the WBC are almost trying to get in the way of that. Boxing has a great way of, it's one of the greatest sports for me. That and basketball, but the greatest sport for me on the planet. But it constantly shoots herself in the foot and gives herself a black eye constantly.
Another fight that's on Saturday night, Taylor pursuing the rematch. What do you think is going to happen this time? You know, what did you think about the last one, but also what actually do you think is going to happen Saturday night?
I thought the last one was a very close fight. I thought Pursuit just nicked it, to be honest. I have to be truthful about that. But also, I think the uproar was just because it's that Floyd Mayweather syndrome. When Floyd got hit with a shot, he lost the round in people's minds. But actually, he just got hit with a couple of shots or a shot when he's not used to getting hit. So I think it was that happened to Taylor with Pursuit, where she lost a few rounds or was getting caught, and she was getting schooled in some people's eyes, and she wasn't. But I think Taylor's got a great boxing brain and is so talented. But she reminds me of Joe Calzaghe in a big chunk of his world title reign, where he didn't use his boxing brain. He just went through his full repertoire of skills, and it was always good enough. And I think Taylor's fallen into that trap where she's so much better than everyone else that she just goes for a full repertoire of skills, don't really think too much, doesn't have to think too much, and it always works, and she always looks great. But it didn't against Pursuit. It didn't work, or it almost didn't work. And she did come. So I think she can box better. I don't think Pursuit. I can give Pursuit loads of tactical advice or my thinking about she could approach that fight better. But she wouldn't do it. She has one thing on her mind. That's, I'm going right through you. That's all I care about. I'm not saying she's an unintelligent person. I'm just saying she's not very intelligent in the ring. But that's her strength. She's single-minded. Punches don't affect her. Punches don't deter her. And I think that's where Taylor had the problem. She throws a nice three-punch combination, and most people will, especially thinking fighters, will take a step back or move, and they will go again. They will reset, because that's getting punched. You know something's wrong. Everything tells you. But Pursuit, she's happy not to take one to give one. She's happy to take two to give three. She's happy to take four to give two. She don't care. She's just going to hit you. When she hits you, she can hurt you. That's all she cares about. So for Taylor, that step back she does so well didn't work. So she needs to be closer to the target and pivoted around the target. Spins and not be too greedy with her work. Be happy to hit her twice. Don't go for four. Don't stay for the second phase. Hit, move. And I think if she does that, I think she can. It's not going to be a comfortable win, but I think she can win by a wide and conclusive scorecards in the end. If she boxes that way, if she boxes the way she did the last time, then she has to show that good chin, that grit and determination, and dog it out against another female boxer who's possibly bigger and stronger than her. That was very long.
Barry, what do you make of women's boxing at the moment? There's been some great fights, especially in the last few weeks. Tasha Jonas, Terry Harper, also in America. We had Cecilia Breakhouse lose her titles to Jessica McCaskill. It seems like boxing is on the rise in regards to women's sides of things.
It do. First of all, let's make no bones about it. There's a lot to be done. The strength in depth is still not there. Then that's the truth. So because everyone now is just automatically saying, "Oh, women's boxing is great." It's not all great.
Yeah.
It's not all great. It's not. But we've seen some fantastic fights, and that's a positive thing. We've seen fights where you don't say, "Oh, that's a good women's fight." It's just that's a good fight, and that's how it should be. Yeah. We shouldn't really be seeing them as women. I don't think we should. Like you don't see sprint. You obviously see what you see. I'm not being an idiot here, but the actual skill level and the excitement shouldn't really matter if they're men or women. If you like it, you like it. So it is. I know some people will never like it. I understand that. That's your preference. I just care about what happens in the ring. And the Jonas fight was a great fight to watch. I think pursuing Taylor, the first fight was just fantastic. I don't care what they were. If they were midgets, giants, men, women, hermaphrodites, whatever. It was a fantastic fight. Forget about what it was. And I think that's important to make sure the gender thing disappears and it's a good fight. And all this like equal pay stuff, that doesn't work. Because why didn't I get the same as Lennox Lewis when I was world champion and he was world champion? Because I was boring and a midget and he's a giant and exciting to watch. And that's just life, I'm afraid. That's just how it is. You only get paid what the market's value is, and that's. But if fights are better, and I think 3-minute rounds, if there's no health implications, and I can't see why there would be, would help that women's sport grow. It really would.
Do you think the 3-minute round should be changed to 3 minutes instead of 2?
If there's no health risk, extra health risk than there is to a man, then yes, because 2 minutes are fast and scrappy. So and also stoppages will occur more, and that's pretty much why I wasn't getting paid more than that, because I couldn't punch my hole through a wet paper bag, and Naz was knocking people out with me the same size. But so everyone wanted to see him. That's what you want to see. Everyone loves skill. I love skill. I love footwork. I love all this. But there's like heavyweights. They're overpaid. They're not as good as any other weight.
Yeah.
Technically, tactically as well. Most of them, to be fair. But when, as you already said, when you get a good heavyweight fight, a really good heavyweight fight, it sort of trumps everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Because all of a sudden you've got the power and the drama, and that's where sometimes women's boxing lacks that, because 2-minute rounds, you can survive for 2-minute rounds. You can run away for 2 minutes. That extra minute drains you and gives you, and also gives a thinking fighter a plan to work off. You can do your work. You can set things up with 3 minutes. 2 minutes is a sprint. And I think that's why the amateur boxing did 4-2s for once Olympic cycle, and they changed it back, because then they did realise it wasn't about boxing skills, just all the athletic fighters were winning.
Yeah.
The tall fighters with a long reach, because they could flick up a few scores and run away, and that's what you don't want to see. So I think 3 minutes helps. Look at the Taylor Bassoon fight. What happens there in 3 minutes? Did Bassoon run out of steam? Did Taylor get stopped? The Jonas Ball fight. What happened? Harper fight. Sorry, what happens there?
Yeah.
When Harper got hurt, what happens? So does she get stopped? And Jonas is the champion of the world? Who knows? But it adds to that drama.
Talking about big heavyweight fights that trump everything, sort of the biggest fight that can happen in world boxing at this present time is Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. You alluded to it there just previously. You've been around Tyson Fury for a long, long time. You've said you've been working for Box Nation for 7 years, or you started 7-8 years ago. Tyson was coming up the ranks. Not many people were following him back then. He had a full set of hair, his curly little perm going on. He was this brash-mouthed person. Many people are looking at him thinking, is he all hype? He's proved he's not just hype. He's actually a talented boxer. What do you make of the whole Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury thing? And if they were to fight very, very soon, 2021, let's call it mid-2021, maybe late 2021, how do you see that fight playing out?
First of all, I think it's a long way off. I do. It's great that they're having a conversation, but there's a lot. There's so many things. The two-stage TV station, different promoters, who gets this, who gets that. Dillian Whyte's involved, and then there's also Alexander Uzuk's involved as well. Somewhere down the line, it's so many things that can mess it up. So I think we all get carried away and excited about something that might not happen. I think if it happened today, you have to go with Tyson Fury. You just have to. I can't see how you go anywhere else. I think the first fight against Wilder, he boxed great, and I thought he got turned over a little bit. The second fight, he showed a different side to his game. And the Joshua second fight against Ruiz, he boxed fantastic. It wasn't a masterclass like some people made out, but he boxed absolutely fantastic. He stuck to a game plan. He was really disciplined, and he used the jab, and his footwork was better than what people give him credit for. But he doesn't beat Fury that way. And as good as Joshua is, and he's good, and he gets too much stick, more stick than he deserves, he still boxed like a man who's a little bit wary of getting hit. And that's a worry for anyone. No one wants to get hit, of course, but I mean, that's a worry. But at heavyweight, that's a real worry. I think we want to see the Joshua of old, where he had that confidence, borderline arrogance, that he could just walk through any man on the planet. Yeah. And it made him susceptible to getting caught a little bit, but he was so single-minded, hell-bent on knocking you out, that he almost shrugged it off. And I think that he has a chance there with Fury. He might walk onto shots, but you don't want to try and outbox the boxer like Fury, who can think on his feet. Fury's not athletic. He was born to be a boxer. Some people Wilder's athletic. Wilder's a sportsman in any sport at a decent level, you would feel. But he's not a boxer. And I think Fury's just an out-and-out boxer. He has those smarts, the adaptability, and I just think he's and the grit as well. He's willing to bite down and give it a go. And I haven't always been a huge fan of Fury over the years. I could see his ability, but I thought he made too many mistakes. Tried to do too many silly things, and at the highest level will get caught. And he's proved me wrong, so wrong, because he's got to the highest level and he's getting better. And I think that's why I would have to. And I think most people, if not everyone, would have to favour him over Anthony Joshua.
Barry, just moving away from the British guys for now. I always say this: everyone loves a big American fight or a good American fight. The return of Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia. Errol Spence coming back from that car crash. It's a tough first fight to come back to. What do you make of that fight?
It's a great fight. It'll be a fan-friendly fight. I'm not sure about Garcia anymore. I've never been. I'm talking about the highest level now. I'm sort of criticising the guy who's been tremendous, but I've never been sold on him as a welterweight as I was as a light welter or a super lightweight. I was at that weight. He was phenomenal because he still had that air of invincibility about him, if that's the word you're looking for. But he was intimidating at that weight because he was fast, but he was also big enough. I think at welterweight he's lacked that a little bit, even though he's still successful. But he might be catching Spence at the right time. We don't know how mentally he is after the accident he had, or physically even, to be honest. So, but you have to admire Errol Spence. There was plenty of fights he could have took on that PBC roster where they're all sort of based. There was plenty. They pretty much, except for Terence Crawford, they own the welterweight division. So there were plenty of fighters there that he could have took, and he took one of the best. So it's a good fight. But I think if Spence is anywhere near is as good as he was before the accident, then I think he sort of dominates Garcia. After 5 rounds, I think he pulls away with a quite dominant performance.
I want to ask about Lomachenko v Lopez. So they say that it's meant to be looking like September, which is quite soon. I would have thought we would have known by now, but likely possibly September. What's your thoughts on that? What's your prediction?
Could anybody bet against Lomachenko? I don't know. You couldn't, could you? The guy's a genius. He's not a lightweight. Yeah. He's not a super featherweight. He's a featherweight. He's a featherweight boxing at lightweight because he's looking for challenges and also looking for the money, let's be honest. But so I worry about that. That's because Lopez is looked fantastic and he's a little bit nasty, athletic, great with his work, and he's done nothing wrong. Will he be too big? I think that's his window. That he might be too big, and Lomachenko, what is he? He's got to be close to 32 now, I'm just guessing. But will he have that same? No, he's just looking for that. Maybe he's looking for the money before he finishes a Hall of Fame career. If he's only had, I know he's only had a handful of fights. It's the size that worries me. But apart from that, I think if Lomachenko's still as sharp as we've seen him, and he haven't lost a step, then I still think Lopez will come up against stuff he's never encountered before. The movement of Lomachenko. And how busy he is. And people forget about Lomachenko. He's not quite Usyk, pressure of Usyk. He doesn't block shots and walk you down. But he makes you miss, but he stays on you. And again, I talked about Katie Taylor, the pivot, and the pivots, I should say, and the short angles close to the body. So there's never a respite with him. He's always tiring you out, making you miss. But the presence of him intimidates you. He's always there. And I think that's where I just think that maybe Lopez might just have a little bit of lack of experience against someone like Lomachenko. But I think Lopez might be the future, to be honest. I think he might be the future. And if he can get the win over Lomachenko, then that really sets him alight for just massive paydays. It really does. It's just huge. The guy will be writing his own checks.
Just going off what you're saying about Lomachenko, he does mentally break you down, doesn't he? Because we've seen people like Iceman Walters, who fought him, Nicholas Walters, who fought him, who quit on his stool, even Guillermo Redondo, just couldn't land a punch on him, and they just eventually, after taking a bit of punishment, they just couldn't carry on. He does mentally drain you out as well as physically, obviously. I
think 3 or 4 fighters who've quit.
Yeah,
have literally walked away. I find that hard to take, to be honest. listen, Duran did it, one of the best fighters on the planet, a guy who I idolise. So, you know, I got to give him a little bit of leeway. But I think I worked 3 of the fights where fighters had quit on him, obviously back in the Box Nation days. And especially the Rigondeaux fight, I was fuming because he wasn't getting, and even Walters, they wasn't getting hurt. It's not that they're getting beat up and then they quit. They just literally went, I've had enough of this. I can't take this. And that's sad. But that's for me, you're right, he doesn't give you a respite. He's on you all the time. And I don't think he has that knockout power, but I think every shot's a stinging shot. And, you know, mentally, he mentally breaks you down. I don't understand how that can happen, to be fair. But, you know, as an ex-fighter myself, I don't see anyone could do that to me. I mean, I can get beat up, of course, and I have been beaten up plenty of times, but I can't see how I couldn't, if I could physically get up off the stool. You've got to. I think that your fighter's pride's got to take you all the way.
Just last one from me. Another fight, one of our own, Luke Campbell, fighting against Ryan Garcia. It seems like the fight should get announced. I think they had the latter parts of the talks in regards to the press bids being accepted or whatever else was going through a bid was being accepted. Sorry, but that fight should be sorted out very soon. What do you make of that fight?
Who knows how good Garcia is? I think he's boxed some good fighters, but I think he's been well matched.
Yeah.
And you know, they picked fighters for his style. He got exceptionally fast hands, exceptionally fast feet. Can he take a punch? I think Luke Campbell will test him. I fancy Campbell. I do. You've got to be careful of Campbell because, again, he's 30, 31 now, maybe. Yeah. Relative. But I mean, he had a long amateur career, and you know, so he hasn't got time on his side, I don't think, anymore. But he looked good against Lomachenko. He lost, and I think the scores were wide and rightly wide, but he was very competitive. And I just think if he can drag Garcia into the dogfight, then we'll find out all about Garcia. Is he the next Oscar De La Hoya? Oscar De La Hoya was a good-looking guy, charismatic. You could sell him, but he could fight. I mean, could really fight. Garcia, good-looking kid, charismatic. All hundreds and millions of followers on whatever social media. It's a great selling point. Can he fight? He has skill, of course, but can he fight? And I think the Campbell fight will tell us a lot about that. But I just think that Campbell's experience, forget about the amateur, as a pro, I think that will surprise Garcia. And I'm not saying they'll stop him, but I think he might just make him feel a little bit sorry for himself.
What do you think is the most exciting division at the moment for you? What one excites you most? Because obviously you said, the heavyweight is, most people would probably say, the heavyweight division, non-boxing people would always say heavyweight division, but someone in the industry, what would you say?
It's off the cuff, it's hard to say it. It's like, your first mind is welterweights, because you've got Crawford, you've got Spence, you've got Garcia, you've got Porter, there's plenty of others there, and Cal Brook maybe, if you actually go something like middleweight. Then you've got super middleweights where you've got, Saunders, not always make it exciting, but Smith and Canelo, or is Canelo a middleweight? You've got the lightweights, you've got Lopez, Lomachenko, Garcia, Campbell. Featherweights, you've got Warrington, Gary Russell Jr., Frampton, super featherweights now, Stevenson and Frampton, Herring. It's hard to pick it. Off the top of my head, I would probably say welterweight. But light heavyweights, Vodzik, he's just retired, hasn't he? But Turbiev, Kovalev's still around. I think we're spoiled for choice. I think the divisions are all really exciting. The fact that people are starting to fight each other, I think that's an encouraging sign. I think this pandemic might do to the sport a favour because people have to fight. I think you can't waiting years to build a fight up now. I don't think is a thing of the past. I feel now it's happened anyway with the influx of Eastern European fighters who have a long amateur career but short pro careers. So after 4 fights, they want to fight for world titles. That's made everyone up their game. So promoters can't bang the ass end out of it anymore. Sorry, they can't smash it anymore. Where they just go, we can give you 30 fights undefeated, then chuck you in a world title fight. It's like if you're at 12, 13 fights and you haven't gone near world level, people are saying why? Why is that? And I think that's where it's been good with all these Eastern Europeans coming in and like Golovkin, Kovalevs and Uziks and the like, because Vodziks and all the others, because they've made fighters fast track. And if you're good, if you know, forget about your age or your experience, if you're good enough, you're ready, I guess. And for weight divisions, I'm sort of avoiding your question because I don't really know, but we're spoiled for choice. We are spoiled for choice. I just look at all the names I mentioned. No, I think I could do that for every weight. I think.
No.
Super flyweight, Yafai, Gonzalez, Kudras, it's
crazy.
Just unbelievable. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm blabbing because I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the truth.
Barry, listen, crazy 2020. We've seen a lot of fighters come back. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Sergio Martinez has announced a comeback. I read on Twitter today. Oscar De La Hoya is talking about it. But is Barry Jones going to come back into the ring anytime soon? I won't even put it past it because 2020 is a crazy year. So go on, Barry. Are you going to make a return?
How do I freeze? Listen, Barry Jones' marathon wasn't that good. I think Barry Jones now in his 40s, he's not going to be that good either, to be honest. But do you know what? I had my last fight at 25 years of age. I was a kid when I retired.
You did, actually.
And yeah, and it was ironic because someone said to me, I had a man strength, and someone said, so you couldn't punch. I said, it's funny. I found my man strength at like 28, 29, but I retired at 25. So I sort of didn't really get the benefit from all of that. But I'm not making a comeback. None of these fighters should make a comeback. I don't know why De La Hoya, he made all the money in the world. I understand the Roy Jones, the Tyson stuff. I don't want to see it, but it's an exhibition, though they will try and batter each other. But they haven't been great with their money, so all the money helps, and I don't begrudge that. But just like UFC versus boxers, that McGregor-Mayweather thing, they're not real fights. They're not real fights. They're not. So enjoy it. It's an entertainment business, like the YouTubers. Anyone want to have a go? You guys should get in the ring. It's a fantastic. This white collar boxing stuff. If it's done correctly, it's a great experience. It's a bucket list for some people who would never do it. Especially from a different background to most of us boxers where we grew up, you would never want to punch someone in the face or be punched. But it's exhilarating. It's the weirdest thing. Boxing's addictive. Getting hits addictive. It's crazy. But I understand why people do it. Just don't mask it. Don't put it as a real boxing. Put it in another corner somewhere and let people enjoy it. And if they can earn money from it, then good luck to you. Muhammad Ali was doing exhibitions with wrestlers and judo people for money. So there's no one poo-pooed that because it wasn't real. No one thought it was real. So let's put McGregor, Mayweather, and Tyson and Roy Jones and whoever else. Put them in that bracket and let them have a good time.
Thank you so much for doing this, Barry. It's been brilliant speaking to you.
No, listen, thanks for having me, and I know I've taken up like 3 hours of your time.
Enjoyed it.
I got loads more to tell you.
I know. We will have to get you on. We'll get you on. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That's it. Take care.
Take care, Barry. Take care. Guys, that was Under the Lights, part 1. We had Shakan Pitters talking about his fight on Saturday night. Good luck to yourself, Shakan. In part 2, in this part, we had Barry Jones talk about everything to do with boxing. Barry Jones knows his boxing, so definitely watch the full episode. But guys, we need your support. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you guys watching us. Definitely subscribe. Hit that bell button to get notifications on future episodes. Also, comment. Do what you can to support the channel. We have links to our social media below as well. So give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But definitely keep on following this channel, and we'll see you guys very soon. Take care.